I've talked to several guys now that they're both associated with universities or colleges, and they're both the gentlemen I talked to are studying like things going on in the gut microbiome in relation to ultra runners.
Yeah.
But they deal with a lot of like GI distress and that kind of stuff. Is there,
Mhm.
do you work with any kind of correlation between the two, GI distress, appetite? Like, do you come across any of that in the studies you're doing?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not currently doing any research right now,
Yeah,
but a lot
I
of
phrased that poorly.
well, yes, I do lit reviews all the time in this stuff because I'm working with most athletes who come to me for help with sports nutrition are having problems
Hmm.
and having a lot of GI distress. And so that's something that, yeah, I'm definitely learning a lot about because it's kind of a new frontier in terms of like learning how to apply it to each individual. Like we kind of know like that it's important, but when you look at like the studies, it's hard to figure out like, okay, so how do you apply this to person X? So learning about people's digestion and the foods that they're eating habitually, I think is a really important piece. And for me, I've done this for a few years now. Like you take the science, you take what we know, but then you have to get to know the person and
Hmm.
find out about them because everyone is so unique. And like, their genetics and their what they eat is going to affect their gut biome. And that's going to, cascade trickle effect to what they're fueling with, how it's responding when they're racing. So
Hmm.
super fascinating. It's like the more I know, the more I learn, the less I know.
I've kind of seen a couple things recently. Are you familiar with Tim Noakes? He's from South Africa.
Oh, I lost that part of it.
That's okay. Are you familiar with Tim Noakes? He's from South Africa.
I am familiar with Tim Noakes.
So he says some, I'll say, unique things as far as if I understand it correctly. Basically, carbohydrates bad. There's a very small percentage of people that should be eating carbohydrates. But along that line, I've also seen somebody else talk about like this idea that certain people are fueled best by fat and fueled best by protein or fueled best by carbohydrates, and there's like these genetic differences that kind of create these variations in people. Do you come across that, or do you think there's any credence there?
So first of all, I used to be really afraid to say my opinion about this, but Tim Noakes has not done good science as of lately, and a lot of the fat and carbohydrate stuff is not valid. And
Mm,
so, like, I kind of some of his older studies, research that he's done on hydration is really fascinating, great, but this this trend that people are latching onto is not good science.
mm,
I think, like that's really oversimplifying to say like someone does better on carbohydrate, fat, and protein. I
mm,
think, yeah, people do better on certain foods, different percentages, but it's not like someone can just eat fat and be well fueled. And right now, the popular thing is not having carbohydrate, and that's so bad for a number of reasons. Just to like give one big reason, the brain alone needs 130 grams a day to stay alive. And like a low carbohydrate diet, when you're restricting that much, your body's going to break down other sources of fuel, convert it into ketones that your brain can use, but that's
mm,
not healthy long term. And then also carbohydrates, like especially fruits and vegetables, have so many micronutrients in them. So
mm,
I really, I really think, we look for this like nutrition is like one of those things that we look for like the trend, like, oh, just do this, don't do this, and you'll be
mm,
healthy. But it's more complex than that. And all three nutrients are important. It's not like you can just, eat whatever you want and that you should eat only carbohydrate, but you need all three. And, someone might be better with like 30% protein, whereas someone else might be better with 15% protein. But there
mm.
is a range, and it's not all or nothing.
I think part of our issue with like nutrition and trying to figure out what our diet is first everybody needs to eat, so then it's partly this struggle of convenience versus what is healthy, but then more so, how do we define healthy? There's this idea
Yeah.
about I need to be healthy, but it's like, well, what does that mean? And I can't remember if this is, I think it's a Google thing, where they use KPIs, like key performance indicators, and they say what gets measured gets accomplished. Well, it's like, how do you measure what healthy is?
Right. Yeah, I think healthy is not a destination. It's like a work in progress. And I think you're healthy when it's not just like your body demographics. It's not like your weight, your body fat percentage. It's more holistic than that. And
Mm-hmm.
I think being healthy is when you're well fueled. And that's, really easy to just glaze over. But when you're getting all the nutrients, when you feel good,
Right.
there's that too. When you're able to train and recover and not have your body be run down, and when you have a healthy relationship with food. I think that's super important. And that's like maybe underemphasized in like when we describe being healthy. I think someone who is super restrictive, they may look healthy from the outside, but that's not holistically a good sustainable place to be in. So
Hmm.
I think taking a step back, and we look at numbers, but then like looking at the big picture, like how do we define like just feeling good and feeling like mental, physical, spiritual, if you will. Those
Hmm.
all matter. So, and for each person, it's going to be different. Bodies are different. And I really don't believe in like race weight and that sort of thing. Like, I think there's like a range for everyone, but it's more a feeling. Like when you feel strong, when you feel fit. And for females, it's much easier to know this balance because if you have a normal menstrual cycle, that's a sign that your body is healthy and
Hmm.
you're kind of optimized. Males don't have that, so it's a little more tricky to find that balance, because it's easier to go too low without your body telling you this isn't good. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah, it's
I've
it's
been there
it's a big
myself.
question.
Yeah. And I've talked
Yeah.
to at least one guy, and he was saying, so the testosterone scale of healthy is from like 300 to 1,000. He was down to like 100, and he was talking about, why did I just forget his name? American marathoner. Help me out,
Right.
Stephanie. Yes, he was talking about Ryan Hall's testosterone being in the toilet. I don't know whether he said this facetiously, but the guy I talked to, his name is Matt Bach. He was saying Ryan measured at like 12 or something one time. I don't know whether that was
Wow.
I don't know if that was an actual number or whether he was just being like it was like 12, like
Yeah.
just saying it was
Easy.
way low.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen the
And
pictures
if
of
you
Ryan?
hear Ryan Hall talk about his health now,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he seems in a much better place. Like he
Yeah.
looks great, and I know you definitely can't judge from looking at someone, but I mean, he looks like he looks healthy and strong, and it seems like he is really happy, and in a much better place. So I think it's unfortunate that we sometimes see elite athletes in this place where they're really unhealthy, yet their performance appears to be the top of the game. So I don't think that's necessarily a good message to send.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a almost a culture in some aspect in terms of running and like being thin. Thin equals fast. And I don't know that that's
Yeah,
necessarily the case. Well,
it's not.
with Ryan, he's retired, obviously. So like he actually, funny enough, is like my size now. We're both 5'10". He's up to like 165, which is why I weigh and I race at okay. Um, but like I couldn't imagine. I think his bottom weight at peak performance was like 127 or something, just like gaunt,
Yeah.
tiny.
And I just kind of asked myself, like, is it worth doing this to yourself. I don't think it is. I mean, I know I don't have like, millions or what, not millions, but like so much prize money riding on this.
Hmm.
I just would never do it to my body. I think I'm more, not respectful of it, but I want to be able to walk when I'm 50, and I guess I would rather be happy and healthy. And I get why they do it. I mean, if that's like your career and you're in the spotlight and you have this pressure, but I just I don't know why, but I have this ability to like step back and look at the big picture. And yeah, I that's a tough situation.
Well, and thinking about your kind of mental state, you had said to me, so to remind both you and if you're listening, that you won the Western States 100 in 2014. You had said something to me along the lines of like, oh, I'm not really a runner, or like I'm a pretty casual runner. Like there's something that like I'm trying to figure out what's going on with this duality in your mind because in to me in no world do you win the Western States 100 and you're just like a casual unless you're a genetic freak, I
Well,
suppose. Maybe that's what's going on.
no, and yeah, I shouldn't be that nonchalant. I mean, I train hard. I work really hard. My mom calls me a type AAA child. I mean, there's a
Okay.
reason I have a PhD. So I do work really hard. I push myself. And when I'm training, I'm serious about it. But I don't let that be the only thing that defines me. So I like when I meet people and they have no idea I'm a runner because
Hmm.
they get to know me outside of running, and I do other things as well. And this has become more important to me probably the last 3 or 4 years because I've had some injuries. And, when you're injured and like all you do is run, that's a pretty sad state to be in. So I like to, run and like love it and train hard, but I also like to be able to disconnect. And, when it comes down to it, like, no one cares. Like it's ultra running, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like in the grand scheme of things. And I honestly don't think I'm any more special than someone who finishes last place. Like
Yeah.
they're working like that hard. And I think that's unique to ultras. Like it's the experience of going through the race. I mean, everyone is going to have a story. And, someone who's out there for like double the time, their story is probably going to be even more incredible.
Yeah, I definitely think about that and thought about it more when I was doing like half iron distance races. It's like I'd finish, I'll say 4.5 hours, give or take, and I would be toasted.
Mhm.
But then I think about, okay, I'm trying to compete for a podium, but then there's, you know, whoever's going to finish last for the day is going to be out for 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours. Like, how much more
Yeah.
grueling is that compared to like the
Yeah.
4 hours I just spent going hard?
I know. I know. It's crazy. And in ultras it's even like more.
Longer.
This is really fresh in my mind because I was just at a race called Ronda del Sim, and my
Oh.
husband ran and he did fantastic. He finished in 34 hours. He was 10th,
Mhm.
and whatever. He finished, we went to bed. The next day we went and had breakfast and lunch. I went for like a 3-hour bike ride. And at dinner that night, there's still people finishing. Like there's a
Mhm.
60-hour cutoff for that race. So watching some of them come across the finish line, it was like, wow, you guys have stories.
Yeah, it was like, what I think maybe for us, but definitely for me, it's like I'm competing for a podium spot often at a race. And so there's that motivation, but also I just want to have fun. So I mean, maybe we should like talk to these people and be like, what is the motivation to spend 60 hours, running just to
Well,
complete?
yeah, just to complete something that you're not sure you can finish. I think the draw of a lot of these races, they're in the mountains, so it's spectacular scenery. It's
Hmm.
it's a challenge because on the start line, it's the unknown. Like a marathon, you can generally know like I can get through this. Like I
Hmm.
can walk it in if I need to. But when you're talking about this race was like 180K, which is a little over 100 miles and like 45,000 feet of climbing. So that's like,
Hmm.
getting on the start line, like, can I do this? And I think that's a huge draw for people is like pushing themselves to a place that they're not sure they can accomplish it. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I you know, with people I have on the show, it's often very competitive and intelligent people. But maybe I should try to seek out a few more like people in the back and be like, "What are you doing out here?"
Yeah, I mean, and like ultra runners especially, and it's a lot of like I've looked at the demographic of the ultra runner. They're really high educated, like
Hmm.
highly educated, which is funny to me. Like, and you're doing ultras, which seems silly sometimes, but
Yeah.
most have like really cool stories. So I think that would be really, if you're into it, like do that. That would be awesome.
Yeah, well, I think you probably. I try to classify people that come on the show as competitive and intelligent, but really, when you're out running for 60 hours, like there's something you can classify that as competitive, whether you're in the back or not. Like, so I think that would fit. One of the things, maybe this is a draw of ultras for intelligent people, but like, what do you think about for all that time? I mean, it's just you, the trail, your legs. Like, what are you thinking about for all that time?
On my best races, I'm present the entire
Hmm.
time. I'm like thinking about the race and what I'm doing. And that's how I know it's a good race. But
Hmm.
that doesn't happen all the time. So normally I'm breaking it into manageable chunks, trying not to let my head wander. I don't listen to music, so I don't have that distraction. It just sounds like noise to
Yeah.
me. I usually try to just think about like, okay, you just need to get over this mountain pass and then you get to see your crew or whatever. Yeah, I mean, it just kind of depends too, because there's sometimes like your stomach goes south or your legs or, it's always like problem solving. And you can go up over like last year at UTMB, it was raining, but then you go up over the pass and it's like snowing, icing, and you just have to deal with all those elements. So I think there's a lot more to be thinking about, like gear wise. Do I put my poles away right now, or do I, get out my extra jacket? So it's more, there's more things, I guess, that keep
Hmm.
you interested or keep you on top of it than when you're running on a road. And I don't mean to say running on a road is easy, because to me that is like the hardest thing you could ever do, is just like constant turnover and pushing yourself.
Hmm.
Here it's like you can walk a little bit and then run a little bit. So
Hmm.
yeah.